buy it in the bulk and pump it in. And the old timers in your bee club are going to say, we've been doing it for years. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the same thing. Scientists will say it's sugar, sugar. What do bees care? Well, it's not the same thing. It has a different pH, which affects all the microbes, affects the hive negatively. It's just not honey. That's all there is to it. Honey is not refined sugar. Honey is not high fructose corn syrup. So we need to stop that practice, but commercial beekeeping, they're really in a fix right now. They really can't stop that practice right now, and I'll go over that here in a minute. Sure.
What are the effects of the high fructose syrup on the hive?
Well, it changes the pH, and then there's a lot of reports that it's toxic to the bees. I'm not a scientist, so I hate to say it's toxic to the bees, but I believe it is. And
I don't have to agree with it because mine lasted 2.5 months.
Yeah,
yeah. It was 500 bees at 15,000 hives.
Yeah. So when you get a new package of bees, you got to feed them something. A new package of bees needs to be fed. I take a Ziploc baggie. I put it about 1/4 the way full of honey. Zip it shut, lay it down on the bottom of my beehive because there's room down there anyway. And I put slits in it with a razor blade knife. That way the bees can land on the plastic and take the honey. And they'll take that honey, they'll build the comb out, and then they'll start collecting the nectar. Once you see them bringing nectar in, just let nature take its course. Some people like to keep pumping feed in them so that they'll build their numbers up, and so they'll bring in a super crop of honey. I don't like to do that. I like to just let nature take her course. And no, I don't think, is there any commercial beekeepers in here? So I'm ready to preach to the choir. None of us are trying to make a living doing this. I mean, it'd be great if we could, but we want bees in our backyard. We want them to be healthy. We want bees on our flowers. We want bees around the yard. The good news is nature's very forgiving. I don't think anything that's happened is irreparable. And I think if we'll study these issues, change our ways on a small scale level, keep bees in our own backyard. It's amazing how many people I see come by the booth and in my speeches they get this dreamy look in their eyes when they see the beehive and they say, my grandpa used to keep bees. My uncle used to keep bees. You know, somebody that was dear to them used to keep bees. And it meant a lot to him. I had one guy say that, I used to help my uncle keep bees, and his wife said, you've never told me that. We've been married for 15 years, and you've never told me that. Well, he's not a guy, and he's a quiet man, but he got this dreamy look in his eyes when it comes to keeping bees. And I guarantee you, your kids and grandkids will feel the same way about beekeeping if they can see you do it and taste some of the honey and get as close as they dare and watch the adrenaline rush of getting as close to the hive without getting stung or maybe stung. So one of the first things we need to do after we feed them honey is regress the bees. Now I'm assuming you've got bees from the southern states that are too big. They're bigger than nature intended, so we need to regress the size. Now, what I've done is I'll put them in a top bar hive. I'll get them going, and when they get about the size of a basketball with the comb hanging down, I'll add frames to the center. I'll spread it apart, add a frame. Come back in a few weeks and spread it, add a frame here, spread it, add a frame here. And what that does is they're drawing new comb right in the middle of the brood chamber. And in the brood chamber they make the smallest cells in the brood chamber. And the reason this is quite important is big bees will build oversized comb. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to, 3 or 4 generations of new bees, bees only live 6 to 8 weeks. So you've got a lot of bee turnover. So you want the big bees to draw natural comb, and it's going to be slightly smaller than what they were on, but not small enough. The bees that hatch from that comb, then they'll draw another comb, and it'll be slightly smaller until it's where nature likes it, and then it'll stabilize. And that will regress the size of your bees. Natural cell size. Okay, this is a picture taken at BeeLanding. That's natural cell size. It probably doesn't mean anything to you without a ruler held up to it, but that's a picture of a natural comb. It's got nectar in it. You can see it's right in the middle of a honey flow. So there's a lot of nectar. They haven't matured it into honey at this point. Any questions? Feed them honey. We covered that. Bees have been around for 10 million years. They've been eating honey that whole time. So let's go back to what they used to. I covered this. I'm going to mention it again. Sugar and high fructose corn syrup changes the pH of the bee. It's a stressor. And I'm going to mention again. You're going to have uncles and cousins and people at bee meetings that say, "Oh, we do it all the time. I've been doing it for 20 years." Well, the bees are dying. We need to do something different than what they've been doing for 20 years. So you're going to have. I go to the bee clubs too, and I keep a little bit quiet because I'm way outnumbered, but you're going to run into some resistance if you start spouting off natural beekeeping at most bee clubs. Now, they're starting to get natural bee clubs around the country, so that'll help.
James?
Yes?
In your hive, how many brood combs are they going to make before they start making honey?
Well, when they start building the first small, say it gets the size of a tennis ball, which is a few combs hanging down and just little arched combs, they'll start putting honey in there already. But they'll also start laying. The queen will start laying brood in there. And in the meantime, the bees are just building like crazy, and they're putting honey in there the whole time in case they run onto a storm where they can't forage. They'll have something to eat. They'll start putting pollen in there almost instantly because pollen is their protein source. She'll start laying instantly, and as they grow, they'll move that honey further and further away, and she'll end up with a nice little chamber that she lays her eggs in.
Do you use the foundation?
No.
Not at all.
No. I use basically a stick. It goes across the cavity.
I saw your hive.
Yeah. I call it a top bar. A lot of people call it a top bar. Basically, it's a stick over a cavity, and they build their. Now, the distance between those bars are critical because bees like to have a certain amount of space between their combs. But they build off of that. I don't put wax on there. I just put the boards in there, and of the 20 colonies or packages that I installed 1 year, only one of them cross comb. In other words, built their comb kitty corner from what I wanted them to build, which messes you up big time. So I've learned to check them on day 1 and day 2 of installation and make sure that their comb is heading straight in the right direction. If it's not, it's usually a little teeny comb. You can just kind of tweak it back, and you may have to tie it in with cotton string. But I'm going to go over that. I'm creating a program where you can sign up to an email program the day you get your bees, and you'll get an email reminder on day 1, day 2, day 5, day 10 of critical points that you need to do.
Kind of do you harvest or extract your honey when you use the top bar?
I'll cover that here shortly. Microbial life in the bee bread, I kind of jumped ahead and talked about that, but they've recorded over 8,000 species of friendly bacteria, maybe not so friendly bacteria, microbial life, all this life inside this bee bread that's similar to the life inside our colon that we couldn't live without. That's the in the book, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Beekeeping, which I recommend. Even if you're not an idiot, I recommend it. They call that the fourth caste in the beehive. There's the drones, the workers, the queen, and then the microbial life is the fourth caste. It's very important. If your neighbors use pesticides, you'll probably all raise your hand, or you're not sure if they do or not. Pesticides, we know, are toxic to bees. The wax will absorb, wax is porous, and the toxicity level will build up inside that wax to where the bees, it'll be too toxic for the bees and they'll end up leaving. So what I recommend people do that's trying to keep natural bees in an unnatural world is to replace the comb every 3 to 5 years, depending on how toxic your area is. Just take those top bars out, cut the comb off, stick an empty bar back in there, let them rebuild it. You can make wax candles or whatever you want out of wax. You skip 3 frames, do it again, skip 3 frames, and then the next year you do these frames and these frames. So you're constantly rotating old comb out of your hive. Now that it takes some resources for the bees to rebuild that, but I think it's important for the wax to remain as clean as possible. Natural selection, I've covered that. If we'll get back to natural selection, if your bees are dying of mites, you just got a serious mite infestation, and you prop that hive up with a bunch of drugs and whatever else you're pumping in there to keep them alive, you're doing 2 things. You're preserving those weak genetics in your bees, and you're preserving the strong genetic of the mite. The mite needs the host. The mite needs the bee to survive. So you're helping that mite, you're keeping the host alive for the mite. So you're helping the mites become stronger, and you're helping the bees become weaker.
So what would you say is the best course of action if you had bees die? Like just start over and
Let them die.
Let them die.
die and start over?
You can go walk out in the forest. You see big old beautiful oak trees that are dying. What do? You prop them up. They do that in economics today. They prop up dead companies, but don't get me started. Nature doesn't do that. Nature does not prop up dead. There's a use for a dead tree.
Firewood.
Well, that's it. Besides that, I mean, if you're deep in the woods, a tree dies. The woodpeckers put holes in it. The bees move in. The birds move in. The microbes, the mushrooms start living on that. It tips over. It goes back into the soil. It's completely used in that cycle of life. Let your bees do the same thing. In nature, things die. Get used to it. It's all part of it. Just like someday we'll all kill over it. So. Bees are not too big to fail. We can wipe out all the bees if we don't change our ways. Breed with local drones, I've covered that. Is there any questions on that? By the way, drones are valuable, right guys? Yeah. Very valuable. Acclimate to location, I've talked about that briefly. Every area has its unique winters, it has its unique wet seasons, dry seasons. Microbial action that lives in that area, pests, and the bees learn to, through natural selection, they've learned how to acclimate to that area. And we can recreate that. We can bring bees from wherever you have to go to get them, plant them in your apiary, let them acclimate, let them breed with local drones, and eventually they're going to be a local survivor stock. Allow bees to live in a simple woody cavity. I like to imitate hollow logs, and I like thick boards for the bees to live in. I think I've already talked about it because it helps with the moisture retention and release. It helps as an insulator in the wintertime. It's what they're used to living in, which is a hollow log. In this country, in the southern, down by the equator, it's different. They've acclimated to not needing that in a lot of instances, but here that's what they need.
A certain kind of wood you use?
No, I don't. I've never seen the bees discriminate between trees. I mean, they'll make use of any cavity they can find. I may be wrong, but I've never seen a tree that they wouldn't live in. So I don't discriminate. I try to find the lightest thick wood I can so I can ship the beehive. It's an expensive cost to ship that thing around the country. So I go for the lighter wood for shipping reasons.